This is a moment in Jewish history. The holiday of Chanukah celebrates the victory of the Maccabees over the army of Antiochus in ancient times. In the 1940s, World War II was raging, the Holocaust was taking place, and Jewish people were fighting in various armies in the land of Israel and in Europe. The following is a brief collection of newspaper articles from the 1940s during World War II and leading up to the founding of the State of Israel in 1948. Most are from the Jewish Telegraphic Agency. December 26, 1940. This Hanukkah, 2,100 years after the Maccabees drove the Greco-Syrian invaders from Palestine, 6,500 Jews are enrolled in the British forces in Palestine, prepared to assist in repelling any onslaught from the Axis powers. The modern Maccabees, as the Jewish recruits are widely known, are enrolled in the army and other fighting units, according to an announcement by Moshe Shertok, head of the Jewish Agency's political department. Meanwhile, the Jewish National Fund announced the receipt of a Hanukkah gift of 3,400 dunam, about 700 acres, at Gezer near Modiin, birthplace of the Maccabee family, which led the fight of the Judeans against the invading forces of Antiochus Epiphanes. The gift was made by the Maccabean Land Company of London, in whose behalf the land was purchased by the late Herbert Bentwich, commander of the Order of the Ancient Maccabeans. The JNF plans to enlarge the tract, which is suitable for the growing of wheat. Palestine Post, June 18, 1942. A candelabra for the Feast of Lights, Hanukkah, was made from food tins and enabled Jewish soldiers in a German prisoner of war camp to recapture some of the mood of the festival, according to a letter recently received by the parents in Tel Aviv of one of the men. The soldier stated he had never regretted that he had joined the British Army and was confident as to the future, and added that a New Zealand padre had taken his candelabrum as a souvenir to be presented to the chief rabbi of New Zealand after the war. December 24, 1943. As of tomorrow, many of Palestine's Jewish householders can stop worrying about shielding their Hanukkah candles so as to make them invisible from the street. The government has announced that the blackout, which has been in force here since June 1940 when Italy entered the war, will be lifted then, with the exception of a 20-mile strip along the seacoast. The all-Jewish city of Tel Aviv, which in pre-war days marked Hanukkah with the lighting of a gigantic menorah on top the city's highest water tower, will still have to observe blackout regulation, since it is situated on the coast. December 11th, 1944. The first Hanukkah services in Germany since the outbreak of the war will be held by American Jewish soldiers in the conquered part of Germany. American Jewish military personnel stationed in the Paris region have raised a fund for the purchase of Hanukkah gifts to be distributed to needy children in the city. Chaplain Najich will officiate at a special service in Paris. The service will be followed by a Hanukkah dance with music and entertainment provided by American soldiers. Chief Rabbi Julian Whale, broadcasting from Paris for the first time since the liberation of the city, thanked the Frenchmen who participated in the resistance movement for the help they gave to Jews during the occupation. He drew a parallel between the Maccabees and the leaders of the resistance movement in France. Like their modern counterparts, the Maccabees fled to the mountains and the caves in order to escape the enemy and prepare for a fight against him, he said. December 2nd, 1945. More than 48,000 candles and 400 menorahs flown here from Palestine in an American bomber augmented the local supply of candles to help the Jews of Germany celebrate Hanukkah for the first time in 10 years. These Hanukkah candles, which he said would shine from the windows of thousands of homes in Germany, were hailed by Rabbi Alexander S. Rosenberg, director of religious activities for the JDC, as a symbol of a new message of hope for our brethren here. December 3rd, 1945. The traditional celebration of Chanukah took on an added significance this year for the 42 pioneers of Kibbutz Buchenwald, as they watched a procession yesterday of 300 children bearing torches and lanterns made of grapefruit shells and from the fruit of their own groves, winds its way down around the farm settlement of Afikim, whose water tower was topped with a huge electric menorah. After the children's procession, led by the youngsters from their own ranks, the members of Kibbutz Buchenwald mingled with Afikim's settlers to sing the traditional songs of the Feast of Light. They heard the head of the community speak of the memory of the great heroes of Israel. They raised square lanterns with their four sides marked with transparent letters, each with the initial of a word spelling out the phrase, "Great miracle occurred here." To the members of Kibbutz Buchenwald who lay last year dying, this phrase was especially significant. For each one, it was a personal miracle. December 5th, 1945. The resistance of Palestine Jewry to the continuation of the white paper policy in the Jewish national home involving the enforcement of restrictions on Jewish immigration and land purchase is a modern counterpart of the Maccabean struggle for freedom 2,000 years ago against the imperialist policies of the Greco-Syrian Empire. Zionist leaders told an audience of more than 1,000 representatives of hundreds of synagogues, Zionist groups, and general Jewish organizations at the Maccabean Festival dinner held tonight at the Hotel Commodore. Dr. Abraham Granovsky of Jerusalem, head of the World Jewish National Fund, said the Maccabees also fought against quote-unquote laws which they could not recognize as binding upon their conscience. A minority, they rose against a mighty imperialist power and with their own strength triumphed. December 23, 1946. The traditional Maccabee Marathon took place in Palestine yesterday, with hundreds of runners carrying torches from Modiin near Lida, where the Maccabean revolt against the Greek rulers of ancient Palestine began. The colorful marathon began at dawn at the graves of the heroes of the rebellion in Modiin, where the Zionist flag was flown at half-mast in memory of the Jewish war dead and visaless immigrants who perished attempting to reach haven in Palestine. The runners were welcomed joyfully at each colony along the way, and their torches were used to light new ones, which were then brought to local synagogues to light Hanukkah candles. December 28, 1948. The festival of Hanukkah was celebrated in Israel last night with a relay race in which torchbearers started out from the ancient Hasmonean center of Modiin, passed through Ramla, where Jewish children in the town cheered the runners, and proceeded to the home of President Weizmann in Rehovot. The Israeli president came out of his home to greet the torchbearers. Taking a torch from one of the runners and holding it aloft, he declared, "After 2,000 years, this is the first Hanukkah in the Jewish state." Again, the Maccabean spirit rules over the country, which is small, but has, I believe, a great future. From Rehovot, the runners continued on to Tel Aviv and made their way to the Great Synagogue. The Hanukkah celebration continued outside the Maccabee House. Premier David Ben-Gurion, addressing the opening session of the Maccabee Parley, declared, "We are living in an era where the Egyptian exodus is taking place in reverse. You are meeting when Israel's army continues the Maccabean fight for liberation and independence." This has been a moment in Jewish history. For past shows, you can visit benbresky.substack.com. Thank you to all the listeners. Happy Hanukkah and Shalom.